Hi, Professor Wong. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Yanni.
Thank you. Since the COVID-19 outbreak, you have been working on the research and then community organizations to fight. In your opinion, what is the most significant impact that the COVID-19 has had on the Chinese community in Canada? Is it financial, or it's mental, or is something else?
I think it's very complex, and I think one of the things that really came out most noticeably is really the kind of resurgence of anti-Chinese and anti-Asian racism that is blatant, that people think that it is okay for them to actually physically assault Chinese people. And there's been so much on the news, and these are not fake news in social media. These are actually mainstream news reporting the kind of incidents that is happening. And what this means is it's not really just about isolated incidents. We know that the Angus Reid report came out and really talk about a high percentage, like over half of the people are actually concerned about their safety. And they're also taking routes or doing something so that they avoid where they go through to get to work. They're concerned about their children going back to school. And this is something that we also found from our town hall when we actually connected to the communities and actually talked to them about the issue. And we had people actually talking about their son as young as 6 at a park where there's physical distancing, and yet people were still kind of calling names and actually making their children very uncomfortable and fearful. So this is something that is really concerning for us in this project, and that's what we are trying to actually address.
I know you mean Protect Project, which is a community movement to help Chinese community go through this pandemic. But you just mentioned this I read the Angus Reid poll as well. So what's your opinion that's why now, and why things are also happening in Canada? What's your analysis?
So I really think that it's almost like COVID-19 had kind of blown up the dust. Anti-Chinese, anti-Asian racism had always been. And for some of the Chinese and Asian Canadians who came at a later stage, many of them were not even aware that more than 200 years ago, Chinese people who came to Canada to help with the gold mining and building the railway actually went through horrific racism. There were Ku Klux Klan people who were actually out there not only to perform violence on Black people, but actually to Chinese people. And even in the early 1900s, they do riots in the Asian neighborhood in Chinatown. So those things are always been, but the difference is that different racialized groups actually get put into different kind of pigeonholes and categories. And because Chinese and Asian people are often seen as the quiet one, they are not standing up strong, they are the model minority. So then they think that it's okay for them to suddenly come out and just call them names. And even way back in SARS, as soon as people realized that there's a virus that originated in the Asian region, there were already racism. And part of the reason why we actually went and applied to CIHR for funding to do this Protect project is because we exactly expect that this type of things will occur. And it's really unbelievable that we live in Canada in this day and age, and yet so many Canadians from all walks of life, including Asian Canadians, Black Canadians, Latino Canadians, many people actually do not know the real history of Canada, that they did not know about the colonization that taken land away from Indigenous people. They did not know that slavery actually had taken place. They did not know that Japanese were actually interned during World War II and sent back to Japan and had their property sold. They did not know that Ukrainians were actually put into internment, like camps here in Canada also. So I think that for us, when this type of aggression, physical, verbal, mental aggression came out, it actually really is just raising the dust that actually had been piling and piling in Canada, but because of fear. Then also, if you go into the media and you had the United States president who keep on referring to the COVID-19 virus as coming from certain part of the world and calling that, and even calling racist names to it, then this is where people are given the permission that they think is okay now for them to come out. And I think one of the part about racism that is so hard to deal with is because racism is a process, is a system whereby different groups of people can be actually dehumanized and treated as not as equal humans as others. And our communities are actually experiencing this. And that's why it's really important for us not only to be out there fighting against this kind of racism, but also calling our communities to come together so that we focus on social justice, so that we had to be in solidarity with Indigenous people, with Black people, so that we fight the same system. Because racism is played out against different groups in a different form. That makes it so hard to really capture. And so, but if we really want to fight racism against, Asian, Chinese, we need to fight racism against all the other people in solidarity.
So it's systemic racist. Racism. So we have to come together to fight to a better, more justified society. That's what you try to say.
Yes. So I think we can do that in multiple ways. Fighting, a system of oppression takes time, and we've seen it in history. It really takes time. So what we need to do is actually, how do we respond to people who are in distress right now? I have heard narrative stories from people where their children, teenage children, are being stigmatized, bullied, even online. And so what we need to do is actually give, tools and strategies for people to use. And I introduced the product website to this parent who told me that, and also about the COVID-19 racism website. And one of the powerful story is that this parent actually, reported back to me and said that when she went through that website and actually filled out the form about the racism that they had experienced, the teenage son become much more empowered. And now this teenage son is actually working with his school principals and guidance counselor to actually do something about anti-racism within his own school. So sometimes we really cannot undermine how community work is really important. And that's what we are really proud about the Protect project, because we're not only providing information on a web site, we are actually having tools that people can use to check out their resilience and look at what area they need support. We have a live chat where people can call about employment, about racism, about stress, about what to do, about opening up. And we also had a PACER training that actually support people who are really highly stressed. We are about to finish the first cohort with healthcare providers who are from all walks of life, but the one common thing is they are healthcare providers, but they are from different ethno-racial backgrounds. And so the program actually supported people to become more flexible in dealing with that and accepting the kind of discomfort and some kind of painful feelings that they go through. But it doesn't mean that we are encouraging people to accept injustice, but it's when we can liberate ourselves to have that flexibility and open up to have more capacity to do something, then we can go out and actually do something together. And I think that is really important.
True. I know you were the one who launched the Protect, or one of the founders of Protect. Um, you just mentioned several things going on with the project. So you feel how you feel. How do you feel about the project? What's the main goal of Protect?
I think what is really inspiring, and I say this all the time, like, Dr. Ellen Lee and I facilitating the PACER Community One, and Dr. Feng is actually working with another physician from his hospital doing the healthcare providers one. And I have to say that every week when we finish the training, we use one word to close up and give to each other. And so far, like every week, I truly feel grateful, connected, appreciative because of the kind of learning that come through. I think we also feel very proud in a sense that our team share the same kind of goals and values. And so we are very enthusiastic. Many of us work till 2 o'clock in the morning, and we still keep going because we actually do get the energy back from people we work with. So for instance, when we did our focus group at the very beginning, we found out that one of the long-term care homes actually were experiencing a lot of challenges because of COVID-19. So we worked and collaborated with the home to actually provide support to staff. And we also provided support. We had another volunteer team that got pulled together to support family members. And it's amazing that when we went and worked with staff actually in the long-term care home, and it's very short only half an hour, twice a day, Monday to Saturday and even Sunday, and it come up with a theme. We don't want to talk about COVID-19, they're stressed out, but really just about ordinary things in life. What are they grateful about? What do they appreciate? And after a while, some of the workers actually would sing a song, and everybody who took part actually laughed, and we heard feedback that they feel more relaxed and they just appreciate that connection.
So
Of
that's
us
just
being,
release the stress, right? This
yes,
two segments every day.
yes.
Wow,
So it's just half an hour, and it's different topic. They could talk
yeah.
about movies, they can talk about their favorite song, they could reflect. And I remember in some of the session that I was in, someone talked about her mother really fondly and talk about what she's grateful about is because her mother cooks really good food. She doesn't have to worry about cooking. And that just made me feel, oh, I wish my mom is here. And other people actually, I was very inspired in one day where someone actually thanked another coworker and said that we had to thank so-and-so because so-and-so was like an anchor. Whenever something I don't understand, I didn't know what to do, I can always go to her for advice. So it's just bringing people together, ordinary people working very hard, very stressed, and yet give them a moment where they can let go of all that stress and just be who they are. And, and have that space just to do something that is not too serious and yet fun.
Yeah, sounds you and then the project have done a lot. So I also want to know that how this pandemic personally impact on you as a professor and then as a social worker, as a community organizer. Personally.
So there are many ways, as I shared before. I feel very grateful and appreciative, and very grateful about the privilege I have because I have a stable job. Many people, racialized people, people in the Filipino communities, in the Black communities, transgender communities, people are really suffering. Sex worker communities where they actually cannot get the CERB funds and that kind of stuff. At the same time, when I listen to some of the news and all the different mainstream news media, talk to people, and you will have people who say that, oh, this gives me a time to really reflect, and I get to connect to what I really want to do and with my family. And then I thought, what's wrong with me and my colleagues? Because we are working nonstop using Zoom and all that kind of stuff. But it does make me reflect. And I'm also teaching.
Yeah.
And I'm very passionate about my teaching, so I put a lot of time with that. But I was also very inspired and privileged because of what is happening with COVID-19, with Black Lives Matter, with Indigenous resurgence. I get a lot of energy when my students actually respond and they dialogue and they actually talk critically about their role personally and politically, what they need to do. So as much as I really need more sleep, but I feel very privileged that I am very inspired by young people, by my colleagues. I love my colleagues because they all work so hard and we worry about each other, but it's that passion in doing this very important work that's very dynamic because, you know, we work with the long-term care, you know, now, but there will be another group that we probably will be working as soon as we hear that there is a need. And that's what make it a live project. And then I feel as much as I do want sleep and I do want to have fun, but I also feel that I'm very privileged.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like the pandemic changed your life a lot in different ways.
Yes.
My last question, you just mentioned the project, mentioned your teaching, mentioned everything, the pandemic impact on you and then your project. So what's the future? What's the plan of you and then the project next step?
So I don't see that when our project funding is over, then it's over. One of the key elements that we are collecting data and doing is actually at the end of the 2 years, we'll come up with a model that is actually based on the processes, based on the community feedback, based on how we work with the communities and how we work within the team to come up with a model so that it become a way that when the next community crisis came on, whether it's a pandemic or whether it's some other kind of crisis, that our community as well as other communities can actually take this model and look at these are the stakeholders that you need to get engaged in. This is how you connect with stakeholders. When you connect with stakeholders, this is how we need to actually do the work so that there is trust that is built, there is respect, there is really that solidarity together. So that will happen. And also some of the issues that came out from COVID-19 will linger. I think COVID-19 uncovered so much about systemic racism, economic marginalization, and we do see that there's still a lot of work to do. Another part that I'm quite concerned is mental health affecting different communities. Like I had met people who actually talk about being virtual, going on Zoom just no longer seems real, and they really need to go and see real people. People who are traumatized by the kind of racism that they experience, especially for our young people when they're developing their social identities. That's something that we need to work with them so that we can actually turn the lens around. I always tell my students, turn the lens around. It's not about our young people having no confidence, no self-esteem. It's about oppression and people taking away their dignity. So turn the lens to the oppressor, and then we can focus on the oppression, and then we all become liberated. We can solve the problem right away overnight, but at least we are going through the direction to focus on the right thing, not about the marginalized people, but who marginalized them, what system marginalized them, and what are we going to do about the system. So I think there'll be lots of work to do. So I shouldn't count on too many hours of sleep yet. Not until I retire, I suppose.
Yeah, this is just it's a continuing job. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to my show.
So thank you so much to connect with you. It's great. It's a great time talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You take good care.